Does God ever come into what you do, or, and I mean, talking about the word here.
Did you say God?
Yeah.
I'll give you an honest answer to that. Honestly, it's if someone is completely devoted to God, whatever the name of God he may use, and he gives his life to God, then that has just as profound a benefit as enlightenment or anything else. The problem occurs when someone believes a God and raises a flag and bows at the altar and attempts to create clever transactions of trying to exchange a coconut in exchange for wealth and prosperity. That's where lies and disingenuousness comes in. That's not God. That's a flea market. That's a dollar store.
And this is the hardest part for me, because I've been teaching yoga, and I don't mean that with a capital Y, for the last 3 years, and it's a marketplace. It's a total marketplace, and it's devoid of any truth. And the message I keep on getting from society is you've got to fit your whatever you're talking about into this little box, and because that's the only way people will buy it.
Yes. Yeah. You have to lower yourself to the masses. Mm-hmm. That's the message. Mm-hmm.
What would be some advice to somebody who is able to hear it, but is also able to hear that voice from society?
Well, it depends what that person is seeking. If that person is seeking pure commercialness, then he's better off following the voice of society. If that person is seeking authenticity because they have no choice, then he will naturally be repulsed by the message of society. However, the interesting thing is that when you are genuine about something, you tend to attract those who are genuine as well. And when that happens, commercialness and, quote, making it a living at it, and while at the same time remaining true and genuine to it, do not become at odds with each other.
Which most people in the, quote, spiritual world would completely disagree with you and say that money is, the root of all evil and such.
Okay, well, if money is the root of all evil, then prescriptions have created far more evil than money has. The spiritual world is a very disingenuous cast of characters. They haven't gotten anywhere themselves, and they teach others how not to get there as well, so that they can remain permanent disciples of them and call them guru, so that allows them a pulpit to sit on, teaching nonsensical, ineffective techniques that go nowhere. So before you call money the root of all evil, perhaps look at yourself and say, what are you giving to society aside from empty prescriptions?
So I asked you on Twitter about questions, because lately questions have become really important to me in terms of figuring out the truth. And you replied that anytime the questions get mechanical, it just turns into another prescription. So what is the importance of questions to finding the truth?
Questions create the path. Answers remove one from it. So a question is it's like finding the precise scalpel that cuts to the heart of the matter. The question creates the journey. whether it's in your profession or in your life, whatever journey that you're pursuing, what is the question that you are trying to answer? And the question is never the one that you think it is. It's one that you have to go through layers in order to find. Because that very question will create the very specific journey. If your question is this, that question creates this path. If your question is this, that question creates an entirely different path. That's a totally different question. If the question is, how do I become successful? Okay, there's a path. If the question is, how do I remain completely, totally, utterly authentic because I really want to, and while doing that, become successful, that's a totally different avenue. If the question is, how do I become spiritual? That's an avenue. If the question is, how do I find truth? That's a completely different avenue.
In our speaking together, now that we've maybe had about an hour and a half so far of conversation, what is a question you would suggest that I look into for myself?
I wouldn't suggest it. I can only tell you that for me, my question, the thing that is at the core of everything that I do, is that what is it that is sitting before me right now that I just haven't seen? And that question is like an engine which is constantly going. It is a desperation. To me, the greatest fear is that 5 years from now, I will learn something that right now I could have known, but because of whatever opaque lens that I may be seeing through, I'm not seeing it. And when I learn it 5 years from now, I will look back and see that I've wasted 5 years that I will never get back. Those are the greatest fears of my life, far greater than any death. I welcome death this very evening. Death can come any time. In fact, I will tell you, I think I've lived long enough. I've seen enough. Death can come whenever it wishes to me, personally. It can take me whenever it wants. But the idea of wasting my life, of wasting years, because things that I haven't seen, because I didn't have the wisdom to see it at that time, is completely unacceptable to me.
Why then do humans have this habit of not seeing the entire picture, not seeing what's in front of them?
Lack of interest.
But it seems it has to go deeper than that, because there's certain...
human beings are very preoccupied individuals. They're caught in the momentum of everyday existence. Do you know how many fires there are to put out every single day? Everyone's life is caught up in putting out fires. Whether it's fire in a relationship, fires at work, the fire of where do I need to go, the fire of why haven't I got there yet, the fire of what pleasure I need to satisfy this week, the fire of how come that person doesn't like me anymore. Do you know how many fires there are? There's 80 lifetimes worth of fires. When is the time that they have free of being lost in the fires that they have to look for anything called truth? The momentum of that river of domestic existence is extraordinarily powerful.
What truth have you found in the last week that you didn't know previously?
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it's much more of a matter of depth than it is of content. I never leave it because I don't have any choice.
The further, I mean, this is back to relative stuff, but the further you get to truth, then the less choice you have, whether you choose to see it or not.
Well, yes. I mean, one of the common things that I get from clients is that now that I have seen even a glimpse of the truth, I would rather die than go back. That's a very common sentiment.
So how do you deal with this paradox of essentially, and not deal with it, that's the wrong word, but how do you work with this paradox that essentially what you're saying is that the closer you get to truth, the more pleasurable it is, but pleasure.
The truth is not a movement towards pleasure. The truth is a movement towards the absence of need of pleasure,
which then brings a certain amount of joy and bliss and pleasure, though, right?
If it does, it does. But usually it's kind of like organic fertilizer, where it doesn't make your lawn bloom right away. It sort of takes time, and it's much more, things that are hyper sweet tend to be very sugary.
Yep.
Right? And things that are bittersweet tend to be more real. So it isn't about pleasure. It is about no longer needing it. It absolutely is not about pleasure, because pleasure fades. Pleasure's here one minute and it's gone the next. When you discover reality never changes. It never leaves. Once you have a realization, you are changed forever. You can never go back. Even if you try, you can never go back, because now you know something that before you did not know. And you will never pretend not to know it.
Some people try, though, right?
No, they don't. They pretend not to know things that they don't really know.
Yeah. They get kind of close to the truth and then back away, or
because the world of pleasure is more pleasurable. The truth is not an experience. It is a steady realization which brings you to a new plane of existence. Human beings tend to chase experiences so that they can bask in the pleasure of the experience that they had, and then attempt to have it again.
And this is really interesting, because what I've been seeing is what we were talking about earlier, is that people are starting to get more. They're starting to realize that the basic material pleasures are not sufficing in the way they used to, but now there's a trend towards the experience economy.
Yes.
So creating experiences that, and now it's getting all wrapped into that commercialism that you're talking about earlier. But that seems like a huge trap as well.
Yes, absolutely.